Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of Product Marketing Breakdowns. If you've seen my previous episodes, thank you for coming back. I appreciate the support. If you are here, new, welcome. This is a podcast that focuses on learning from your peers. We give a platform to some of the best product marketers in the industry to come on, bring an example of a project that they themselves have worked on, and break it down for us. They will walk us through the process that they followed, the insights that they leveraged, and just explain why it works. So you can learn directly from the creators and take inspiration from their work and apply it in your day to day today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm your host. My name is Chirag. I'm a director of product marketing. I'm based in Canada. I was recently named a top 100 global product marketing influencer by the PMA. As I said at the beginning, this is episode 6, and my guest today, he's a big one. I don't think he needs an introduction. You probably know him already, so I'll probably keep it super short. One of the biggest names in product marketing. He's done a phenomenal job in lifting the product marketing community and being the guiding light to founding PMMs. He's also based in Canada. My guest today, he is the founder of Productive PMM, writer of the PMM Files newsletter, founder of agency DemoDash, and I'm pretty sure some more initiatives in the future as well. Excited to have Jason Oakley on the podcast. Hey, Jason, I hope I covered everything.
Hey, Gerald. Yeah. Thanks. That was a wonderful introduction.
I'll try my best.
But yes, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. This is like really cool. I love the concept of the podcast too. I love like, as you know, practical, just sharing real examples and stuff. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're bringing this up because that was one of the things I wanted to focus on as well.
Yeah.
How can I create something which can give value to someone like right away today? And I realized that getting the creator on is obviously it provides a different level of insight and so on. So that's what I'm trying to do. So
Yeah. That's cool. Love it.
awesome.
All right.
So for that, maybe that one or two product marketers out there who don't know you or who haven't heard of you, would you mind introducing yourself and covering anything that I may have missed out on?
Sure. Yeah, you covered it pretty well. Like my name's Jason. I'm a Canadian. I currently live a couple hours outside Toronto, and I've been most of my career has been my whole career has been in software sales and marketing. But the majority of my career, like slightly over 10 years, has been as a product marketer. And what I'd like to call what I call a founding product marketer. So that single product marketer who starts on their own as the first product marketer or the only product marketer in a company. A lot of people call them solo product marketers, right? And is responsible for building a lot of the foundation from scratch.
Hmm.
So I did that mostly, like most of my career, I was that founding PMM role, and I don't know, about close on 2 years ago now, I went out on my own and I started Productive PMM. And the point of Productive PMM was to help founding and solo product marketers. So those people who were in the shoes that I was in, kind of in a role that is you're expected to do a lot. You're often misunderstood. You're in a startup. Not a lot of people know what product marketing is. You're being asked to do so many different things. You
Right.
kind of are alone. You're kind of out on an island and you don't have a lot of mentorship, guidance. And so, really trying to create like resources and provide coaching and advice for these kind of solo, these founding product marketers has really been my mission with Productive PMM. And then, yeah, like you said, like I've started a couple of other initiatives, DemoDash being one of the big ones recently, which is starting our own agency focused on interactive demos. And yeah, just been loving it. So that's a little bit about me. I write a newsletter. It's called PMM Files. So if a lot of people know me through that. So if you like practical product marketing examples, we share 5 of them every week. And yeah, subscribe.
Yeah, I think I can echo that. I have been following a podcast, your newsletter for 6 months, 7 months now, I think, and every week consistent great examples. I look forward to it. So if you guys want to check it out, highly recommended. I like what you also said about obviously you being a solo PMM and then venturing out and now kind of helping bridge the gap for other solo PMMs out there. That really drives home to me because I am in the same position as you, Jason. My previous roles have been as solo PMMs. I have been brought in to set the function up. So I totally get what you mean.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and as you said, different people have different understanding of product marketing. Some
Right.
people may get it, some may have a completely different opinion about it. So something like this is super valuable, which is great.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. It's a tough role. It's a tough role being a product marketer. It's widely misunderstood in large companies with
Correct.
multiple of them, let alone when you're the only one in a startup. So it's to all you founding PMMs out there.
Yeah.
Um, we see you.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you covered this a little bit, but I just want to get into a little bit more about the pivot that you made from your previous roles. As you said, you were leading product marketing in a few tech companies to
Mhm.
then deciding to venture out on your own, start with Productive PMM. What
Yeah.
was your decision like? What made you kind of venture out on your own?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always been entrepreneurial. So, throughout my, even since I was in university, like had multiple kind of small businesses that I ran and products that I created and things like that. And so I've always been entrepreneurial, and I knew someday I would go out and do my own thing.
Hmm.
And I think with Productive PMM, I saw there was an opportunity, right? I think the creator space is really blowing up, and
Yeah.
I saw that there was an opportunity for someone to do that within product marketing, right? And and I said, hey, why not me?
Yeah.
So I really made the leap. Like while I was at Clue, the interesting thing was even taking the role at Clue, I knew Clue was a product for product marketers, and there'd be an opportunity as the product marketing leader at Clue to be in
Yeah.
front of product marketers and to build an audience. So it was a really cool opportunity to start to build a bit more of my own personal brand and an audience. And then I launched a digital product. It was a Notion template called the PMM Productivity Hub, and that was a good way to dip my toe in. And I got my first coaching client, and really it was then things just started to fall into place. So I said, hey, I'm going to do this now, or someone else is going to do it. And so yeah, I did it, and here we are, 2 years from that point almost.
Yeah.
So
That's a
it's been
very,
going
very
good.
inspiring story as well. Like for me as well, like I've started this and I am still dipping my toes, still kind of getting started at
Yeah.
this point. And this is a great template. It's a great blueprint to follow, right? Because I was also pretty much doing the same thing. Like I didn't start the podcast to, build a business out of it at first. That wasn't my first thought at this point. I thought, okay, there is a gap in the market. I would have loved if I had something like this when I was starting out in product marketing. So I was just trying to bridge the gap, but that's a great way to look at it as well.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
you mentioned solo PMMs, right? So I want to get into the actual audience you're going after.
Mhm.
Productive PMM obviously focuses on founding PMMs, help them build their function from scratch, from zero. What was it specifically for you that made you go after this group? And maybe can you share some challenges that you have seen that your audience is facing? Maybe something that they've shared with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I chose this audience because I know it because I've been a founding PMM most of my career.
Yeah,
So, in terms of like focusing on what I felt I was an expert in, right? And I had knowledge and experience to pull from and share. That's why I chose it. So I said, hey, I've been this. I know what it's like. I have I have value to give this group of people, and that's why I wanted to focus on it. I think from a product marketing perspective, I also just wanted to pick a niche. And I
yeah,
feel like founding PMMs, solo PMMs, I feel like you're going to see more of them. And I
mm,
think that it's one with not to talk about AI too much because everyone's kind of sick of it at this point, but it is what you're seeing out there is there are companies that are trying to reduce the amount of headcount they have. Like
yeah,
some aren't, but some definitely are, and they're trying to go with like smaller, more productive teams, and they're trying to do more with less. Uh, and so in those companies, you're seeing a lot of product marketing teams become one product marketer,
yeah,
and so at that point, you need to be able to do a lot on your own. And so those people are in a very tough position. But then there's also a lot of companies that are popping up. It's a lot easier today to build a product and start a business. And I think you're going to see a lot of companies that just have one product marketer, right?
yeah,
And that for a long time. Like we're doing a study now, or we did a study in December, and we're just about to kind of launch the report from that. And we asked one question: is your team growing in the 2025? Like, are you hiring more product marketers? And 75% said no.
mm,
So I think that you're just going to have teams stay smaller longer, And so I think that this idea of like this solo founding product marketer, it's they're going to be operating that way for a while.
Yeah.
So
I think,
yeah,
yeah. I think the other thing that I thought about is while you were speaking, I think the PMA also did a study on this last year, somewhere mid of last year, towards the end of last year,
yeah,
where they said they echoed the exact same thing. Solo PMMs are not going anywhere. Yeah, if nothing, it may probably increase even further, right?
yeah,
And so, how do you enable someone with all the tools that they need to do so many different things a product marketing team usually does? So,
yeah.
that's something that's spot on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And like you wear so many hats. And so for that
yeah,
reason, naturally people are gonna can't be amazing at everything, or they can't
right,
have done everything before, especially, and we see this too, is like a lot of these founding PMM roles, they're hiring people who don't have 10 plus years experience. So they haven't done these things.
right.
And
Where
so
do they
they need
start?
help and they need playbooks and somewhere
Right,
to start from, right? Instead of from scratch. So
totally. Awesome.
yeah.
We spoke about PMM's files. We spoke about productive PMM. We spoke about the other things that you're leading as well. I think I'd like to dive into them now, which is called the breakdowns. So, would you mind sharing an example or introducing the example that you brought with us and start sharing some context?
Absolutely. Let me, now that I'm speaking to you, I'm like, oh, I got to get this one extra thing pulled up. Okay, cool. I've got three things that I'm going to show you. I'm going to try to make it like a rapid fire, keep this interesting for people. So let me share my screen.
Sure.
Um, okay. So let's start with the playbook template.
Mhm.
So okay. So these are templates. So I have the kind of membership called the Jetpack, the PMM Jetpack, and we share templates and resources and examples and all this stuff for founding product marketers. Um, I've shared this on LinkedIn before. It's called the Launch Playbook. I've talked about
Mhm.
this quite a bit. We had a course on product launches called Ready for Launch. I did it with Tamara Greminsky and Andy McOtter Picknell. And this is one of like the kind of pillar templates that I kind of shared as part of my section of the course. But
Right.
it's this idea of, as a product marketer, one of the things that you should work on in a company is establishing your launch playbook, like your standard process for how you go about launching new features or new products, that sort of thing. And
Mhm.
so this template is really meant to be your internal playbook. This is meant to be the thing that you would use to align with your product team mostly on, hey, how do we go about launching products? And so one of the first parts of this is figuring out your launch
Mhm.
tiering system, right? So
Mhm.
how do you think about prioritizing your launches? Because if every launch goes out and it has especially if you're at a startup that is launching things pretty quickly, if everything you're putting all kinds of effort, everything is
Right.
at the same level, then
Nothing
one,
stands
people will
out.
just
Yeah.
they'll start to kind of block it out eventually. So you need a way to prioritize your launches, not only so that you can manage things internally and like workload balance, but also so that when you have something really important to say, the market actually listens. And
Mhm.
so having I'm sure everyone's heard of launch tiering before, but your P1s being your most important big launches, the ones you want to put a lot of marketing effort behind, those would be your P1s down to a P4, which might be something that is more of a quality of life change that you don't actually market.
Sure.
And so having this alignment between you and your PM team around, hey, how do we think about prioritizing our launches? And then from there, what actually are we doing? What are these expectations that we have for a P1 versus a
Mhm.
P4? So if you go back here, when we think about launch tiering, um, there's a product marketer. His name is Mark Cassini. He's a very smart guy, and he came up with this framework for launch tiering. And you're really just asking two questions: what's the business value, and what's the customer value? And I
Right.
actually like to think of it too as business impact and customer impact.
Mhm.
Um, and the business impact is really thinking about things like, is this going to help us drive more revenue or more profit?
Or cost savings, operational
Cost
efficiency.
savings,
So on.
exactly.
Yeah.
The other question could be too, is this going to, like, when you thinking about not just value but impact, is this going to like impact our teams in a big way, right? Is
Sure.
this a substantial change to our product where we need to make sure we train a lot of people? That's
Right.
another thing to think about too, right? So if it's a high, you're asking yourself, is it low, medium, high?
Yeah.
Customer value or customer impact, right? Is this going to help our customers drive the types of outcomes that they initially purchased our product for, right?
Their day to
So
day. Yeah.
is it going to help make them more successful, or is it going to impact them in a significant way? So at Clue, for example, we made a big significant change to our UI. We knew that was going to be a bit of a jarring thing for customers, and they needed to be enabled, right? So those are things that'll help you determine whether it's high, medium, or low. If you have high business, high customer value, it's going to naturally be a P1. If it's low on both ends, it's going to be a P4. That's
Mhm.
generally, the way that you'll use this kind of scoring
Sure.
system. And then what you'll want to do is come over here and say, okay, for a P1, starting here at the top, it's like, what are some of those expectations around who's the go to market owner? Who
Mhm.
decides the launch date? How much lead time do we need? Like, these are things that you can start to think through and just have normal
Sure.
expectations around a P1. This is what comes with a P1.
Sure.
And then from that too, it's like, what kind of meeting structure or communication structure do we have? And then what are the more bill of deliverables? Like, what are all
Right.
the things that go with that launch?
Right.
So it's not meant to be that every P1 has to have all this stuff, right?
Right.
But it is a starting point for you.
I love that. There's a couple of questions for you, and I'd love to get your take on those as well. The first one is you had the quadrant or the table
Yep.
P1 to P4. I would love to get your thoughts on so the current two um, values are obviously business as well as customer at this point. But what are your thoughts on if it's a feature addition or if it's a new product launch, which is a differentiated value compared to your competitors? So let's say if you're launching something, it could be a small addition to a product, but no one is actually doing that. So that sets you apart and it kind of helps your users' workflow significantly. In
Yeah.
your mind, what do you classify that as a P1 compared to a P4?
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because you could launch a whole new product and it might not have a lot of customer value.
Yeah. Or
Or
it
it
may
might
be a
not help you.
replica of, someone else.
What's that?
It could be a replica of another competitor. Like there's no
Yeah.
differentiating factor
Yeah.
there.
It's not to say that I guess this is an interesting thing. It's like the amount of effort or time it takes your company to build something
Yeah,
shouldn't necessarily be an indicator of how big the launch should be,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Because you could add something that was very simple, but if it provides a ton of customer value and no one else has it, so it's a big differentiator and it's going to help you drive a bunch of new business, that
right.
should be a P1. That's
Yeah,
like the best kind.
exactly. Yeah, like
Versus,
right.
yeah, you don't want to pour like a year into building something that has no customer value, no business value, which often is what happens, right? Like, because people
Mhm.
put a ton of time into building something that an engineering leader or a founder thought needed to exist. You pour
Mm.
all this time into making it, and then it comes time when you're like, hey, okay, we're getting ready. Well, this product's almost complete, and everyone's kind of looking at each other, being like, no one's going to buy this. Like, no one
Right,
cares about this, and
right.
that's the worst.
Yeah, I totally agree. The other thing you mentioned is the process of deciding from P1 to P4 is taken collectively between obviously product marketing and product, right?
Yep.
Um, in your mind, do you think there are other stakeholders who would also have very valuable input in this process? Think of customer support, customer enablement, maybe even sales at some point. So it's more of a
Yeah.
collective, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I think it's true. I think for the most part, what you find, especially in like the when you get into the kind of the regular day to day operations of a startup or company, is
Yeah.
that it's going to be owned by PM and by your PM and PMM, right?
Mhm.
Those are the two that will own it. And I think in a lot of cases, determining whether it's a P1 down to a 2, 3, or 4 is going to be decided by both of them.
Right.
And usually it's like it's pretty apparent what it's going to be, right?
Right.
Um, I think if there's ever a case where there's a question mark or you need a tiebreaker or something like that, um, then there's the opportunity to loop in other people or be like, hey, I don't think this has much customer value, and your PM is saying no, this 100% does, and then
Mhm.
you could be like, hey, let's talk to CS and see what they think.
Yeah.
Um, and depending on the size of your company, founders are always in the loop on these, and they might be the ones who come in and say this is a P1, and then maybe you and your PM needed to determine or help negotiate that. So I think it is I think ideally it gets into a good flow where you and your PM are pretty aligned on these things, and it is a relatively quick conversation. But when it isn't, then that's when, yeah, you look at looping other
Gotcha.
people in.
Yep, that's totally
Yeah.
fair. I love this template. I think it's a great way of looking at it. And even the second page that you had, which had all those channels listed for each of those tiers, I love it. This
Yeah.
is so well laid out.
Yeah, and the last thing I would say you do too is you want to talk, like, sit down with your head of product or your PM. It depends. Again, if you're thinking of the startup world with a founding
Right.
PMM, you might have a couple different PMs that you work with. Sitting down with them and trying to figure out your launch roadmap is super valuable because, and it doesn't need to be set in stone or anything like that. But if you could start to map out, hey, what launches do we have coming up over the next 6 months or the next year, right? And what launch tier might they be?
Mm,
And then even starting to bucket them into themes. A lot of times product manage, like PM teams, will have their own themes around, oh, this feature falls into this bucket, and this feature falls
right.
into this bucket. You could go by that, or it could be different go-to-market themes that you might have, but even if you go with themes that the PM team has, one thing that you can do is you could start to see opportunities to bundle these.
Mm,
So if you know there's a few
correct.
features that are coming within a couple months of each other that, if bundled together, actually could have a really interesting story, then you
Right.
could bundle them, and instead of having a string of P3s, you could have a P1.
And you could probably have a second wave of the communication for the same launch instead of
Totally.
just
Yeah.
launch. If you're clubbing it, you can kind of spread it over a period of time. So,
Yeah, you could do that too, right? Like you could have tiny kind of
right.
launches or tiny campaigns and then have one big one.
Yeah.
And then, as you start to map this out using this template, it'll just plot it out in a chart for you. So again, you have this timeline view, which is helpful for other
Yeah.
teams too, even. And so
Totally.
that's the playbook. So imagine you take something like this, you work with your PM team, you have you're aligned on, hey, here's our process for how we tier prioritize launches. Here's what a P1 through P4 looks like. Here's our roadmap for the year on what we have. And we've actually found some opportunities to have some really impactful launches, hopefully. Like
Mm,
that should be the ideal state for a lot of product marketing teams.
right. I love that. This is so well thought through, and I can see a founding PMM gets so much value out of this.
Yep.
Um, and I think even if a PMM will walk a PM through this, I think getting them on board following a structure like this is going to be super easy because
Yep.
it helps them kind of bring together, work off the same playbook, and make sure you're aligned across all the channels that are going. So I love that.
Exactly. Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Let me show you another one. Okay.
Mhm.
Stop sharing that. Cool. All right. So this one looks similar. It's a different template. This one I call the launch plan. So this is the one that you would copy and use every time you're working on a new launch. And when I created this, again, I'm talking to founding solo PMMs, the
Right.
ones that aren't looking to build out, like your launch is usually with a small group of people,
Mm,
right? So I like to keep it as a one page launch plan, not a lot of complexity to it, not a ton of subtasks and a lot of complicated project management that you need to do. Let's keep it really simple. And so this is the one page launch plan. And this is actually the launch plan that we used for the launch of the Jetpack, which was a recent membership product that I had launched.
right.
And so I'll just kind of briefly walk you through it and show you some of the things that we thought about included in this launch plan. And this is the launch plan that I use. So if I
Right.
was launching a new product, I would use this plan,
Mm,
or use this template. And so at the top here, just very basic details and an exec summary. Don't have to go into too much detail there. It's just if someone wants to drop in and get a high level overview of what this is, it's very
right.
easy for them to do. When I created this exec summary, I literally just copied everything that was in the plan. I went into ChatGPT,
Yeah.
just pasted it in, and said, "Give me an exec summary."
Right.
Um, Come down to OKRs, and the OKRs are, like, I think every launch you want to sit down and think about what are the goals we're trying to drive for this launch.
Mm,
And I like the idea of OKRs, objective being something that's a bit more aspirational, right? It should be specific. It doesn't necessarily have to be measurable.
mm,
And then from that you have your key results, which are the measurable, time
right.
bound, like SMART goals.
Right.
And SMART being the acronym, if
Mm,
anyone's familiar with that.
Right.
And so you could see for us here, it was how much revenue we wanted in the first week, much revenue we wanted by end of year, how many reviews we wanted, how many monthly active users we wanted to hit, how many mentions we wanted from other PMMs, like notable people who had followings in the community. So those were the results, like the measurable results we wanted to drive. We had our target. We were using this to track where we were currently, and you could see we did pretty well. Right. So a simple system like this, a lot of times we might have it in a deck if we were doing a post-mortem. I have a template for that, but it's usually it would be, this is my source of truth, and then we're copying this over to like another deck to present afterwards.
Right.
I like to start with milestones and work back from there. So this is where I would come in. I'd say, okay, launch day is here, right? Or the actual launch was over a period of time. But then you work back to the point where you're saying, okay, the first thing is the product's ready on this date. Then we want to confirm, for us, it was supporters. A lot of people in a B2B SaaS company, it might be that your, enablement, like your sales team has signed off on they feel sales ready. You've enabled them. You've enabled the CS and sales team. You've got all your content created. Like all of your bill of materials are ready. You're launched to your wait list. You launch to your newsletter, or you launch to your customer base, or you run your beta program. So you think through your milestones, and that makes it a lot easier for you then to come down here and start to just map out your bill of materials. And so
more practical then.
Yeah, it's hard to just start with a blank page and start to plan out tasks. So start with your milestones, and then you're basically filling in the blanks of what's it going to take to have the product ready. What's it going to take to have everyone enabled? What's it going to take to have, so you start to think through it. And then I come down here and really just build out this very simple task project plan. And I broke it out by starting with launch strategy. Then for us, is the product ready? Because we were the PM and the builder of the product, and the marketing team combined. But you could see we broke it out more by different, a little bit aligned with the milestones, but you could see we added in some other sections as well.
Right.
And really just starting to simply plan out these tasks, right? So it's not like draft the emails, right? So we had here draft the emails, review and edit the emails, and then set them up in Kit.
You could
Those three tasks is even a little bit bigger than a lot of times what I would do. Sometimes it would just be like write the emails and write the emails, put the emails in Kit. So it's not trying to overcomplicate it and add a bunch of different sub layers and different. It's especially if you have a small team. It's just 2 people that were doing this long, right? And that's a lot of times the case in a small startup.
Right.
But as you start to get more sophisticated, then hey, that's where you start to bring in this idea of a RACI chart.
RACI chart,
Who's responsible, who's accountable, consulted, and informed. The other thing worth mentioning here too is this idea of an audience. So being very specific on who your target audience is here. And so like I have another like audience document that I would use to really define who my target audience is, or multiple audiences for this launch. But I like to bring that over here as well and say, this is the primary audience that we're talking to. And so mapping that out here, so it's all just in one place. The other tab here is just putting this in a timeline view. So if we're looking to see like, hey, what are all the things happening during this week, for example, then as you start to map things out in the spreadsheet, it populates over here. Gotcha. So it's that is essentially it. For us, it was, I'll walk through a couple of these things. It was getting the product ready. We had an onboarding flow that we needed to create. So as again, think a little bit more of like product stuff. Enablement. So a big part for us was making sure that everyone who was helping on launch day was enabled, had the resources they need, all that. Getting the content ready. So like landing pages, different emails we had to draft, all of that. We started with inviting people who had already purchased a previous product before that were getting free access. So think of these almost as like beta testers in a way. And then we launched to the wait list that we had. We launched to the newsletter. We had everything that was associated with launch day. And then you're seeing the actual launch plan, which is almost kind of incomplete in itself, is
Mhm.
we had what we called rolling thunder, which is what are the things that are going to happen after launch day to
Like
really,
multiple waves
it's
after
not
that.
just launch day and then
Yeah.
it's over. So it's us
Right.
thinking about what are we going to do to keep this relevant. And it was just, a lot of like LinkedIn posts that we were doing and all of that. And then the plan was to eventually launch on Product Hunt, which we decided not to do.
Yeah. I think in Rolling Thunder, you can probably add this podcast as well, Jason.
Well, that's kind of it. It's like what time, at what point does the launch plan just go
Right.
away? And it's more of, a interesting example would be April Dunford when she launched her book Sales Pitch. I
Leverage. Yeah.
remember just chatting with her. I think I saw her at PMA conference, and she had a whole year planned out. Like the launch of her book included events she was going to, speaking gigs she had, all these different things. And so it is this interesting question of when does the launch end,
Right.
and when is it just like, hey, this now we just need to market this product.
Right.
Um, And so, yeah, you can kind of see here with us, we just kind of stopped using the launch template after a while, which
Right.
is totally fine. It's like once it's not useful anymore, hey, then you're done. We hit our goals. For us, it was like end of year was like the launch was kind of over, and then now it's just a matter of, hey, what are we doing to market the jetpack? So,
Correct.
um, so yeah, this is the launch plan.
I love this. Jason, in your experience, whenever you've spoken to founding PMMs, um, how are they currently doing this? What is their process looking like? And in your opinion, where is the most value that a built out template like this is helping them?
I would say a lot of people are they're either building their own spreadsheet.
Right.
A lot of people start with a template. And it could even be that they use something like Asana and
Hmm.
or Notion, and they come with like these pre-built templates. But usually they have some sort of project management tool that they use, and they're either building it in there or they have access to a template. Like there are
Right.
tons of templates out there. And I think if
Mhm.
anyone's starting a launch plan and they don't start with some sort of starting point,
Right.
then I think that you're just wasting a bit of time. And I think that having a template like this that you can come in and see how it's laid out, take what you like, take what you don't like, or kill what you don't like, just really just make it your
Make
own
it your own. Yeah. Totally.
is what I would say my advice is. I've heard so many times I've heard of people be like, yeah, I started with your template, now I have my own kind of thing, and that's perfect.
Yeah.
And then they take that with them wherever they go, right? And
Correct.
so I think it's that's what I'm trying to provide here is just a starting point for you if you've never done this before and you don't have your own template
Right.
or you don't have
Even if
your own
someone
playbook.
has been a seasoned product marketer, this something like this could actually ramp them up so much quickly.
Totally.
Next time they
Yeah.
do a product launch, they don't have to kind of create something from scratch. They can just use this, and then, as
Yeah.
you said, take out stuff, make it your own, and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. I find these things are I know some people are like, oh, don't do templates and it just gets you to think too rigid. And I don't think of it that way. I think a template frees you to think,
Right.
okay, this is a good starting point. How can I make this my own?
Yeah.
Or at least that's the way people should think of those types of
Totally.
things.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love this. Thanks for sharing, Jason. This is awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
I'd like to move on to the next section that I like to call behind the scenes. And I'd love to I know we've spoken about the Jetpack, we've spoken about PMM files, and obviously the product as well. But I'd love to hear from you if you can talk a little bit about the projects that you are currently working on or what's top of mind for you right now.
Yeah. Sure. So there's like a couple different things that we're working on. So you talked about DemoDash. So we
Hmm.
had launched DemoDash, which was an agency, myself, Eric Holland. We launched DemoDash, which is an agency that focuses on helping Novatic customers build remarkable interactive
Right.
demos. So we just we've spoken to and we've seen a lot of people who they want to build interactive demos, but again, they're a product marketer, they're so busy, they just don't have the time to think about everything that goes into building a good quality interactive demo, from storyboarding to thinking about how to tell that story
Right.
to right, like putting the time into building and utilizing Novatic and everything you can do in it. And so we saw a great opportunity to come in and help those people. And so for a while we were like coaching it kind of separately and doing projects in Novatic. And then yeah, we decided to kind of join together and do this agency. And it's been really cool. Like there are so many people, interactive demos are becoming so much more popular.
Mhm.
And I think that for us, it is a very cool kind of format or form of content to be kind of working in. It's very cool. And I'm just a big believer in show
Hmm.
L, right? And if you can come in and show people your product, it just makes the buying process a lot easier, which
Totally.
leads
I
to
I actually have also been I have made interactive demos and product tours as well in one of my previous roles. And from that time I remember you never get it right the first time, right? You think you have a user flow defined, you go in, you create the whole thing, and then you start tracking the actual metrics or how people are engaging with it. You realize people are dropping off at step 2, step 3 out of a 10-step process, for example. And then
yeah.
you go back, you refine. So there's a lot of time going, not just in setting up, but actually going in and fine tuning it as well. And I think having you and Eric, obviously, who've done this before, helps shorten that revision cycles as well. So
Yeah, it's great. It's a great question. I mean, it's a great point. Like some of the first demos I created were not good at all, right? And so it's like helping kind of speed up that curve. So DemoDash has been awesome. The other one, because I'm thinking about kind of time here. So the two others would be uh, working on the state of founding and solo PMM report. So if
Mhm.
anyone might have taken part in the survey, we had about 200 people take part in the survey in December of 2024, so a few months ago.
Right.
And we've been compiling those results and trying to build out this report. Taking a little bit longer than we'd hoped, but it's going to be ready in the next couple of weeks. It'll be ready this week, but we're going to launch it in a couple of weeks.
Sure.
And it's really cool. It's going to give, because I think a lot of founding solo PMMs, like we talked about this, you're kind of in your own bubble and you don't really have people to talk to and to say, hey, how much do you get paid? Or what projects
Right.
are you working on? Or how do you divide up your time? Or who do you report into? And so this is meant to answer some of those questions, or at least crowdsource so you can see
Sure.
what others are doing. And there's some really cool insights in there, right? That hopefully people find valuable. So we'll be launching that soon. And then the other thing, which is a fun thing that I'm getting to do now, is I've been coaching people for a while, and so starting to work with some companies now that are looking to bring on founding PMMs and need help with it. So starting to work with some companies to help them from one hiring and like finding that great founding PMM to
Mm.
helping onboard that person to then coaching them to be successful. So that's been kind of fun. It's like the evolution of what I've always called my founding PMM accelerator program,
Right.
which is neat. So those are like some of the things in the works.
Oh, that's all. You. How do you get the time, Jason, to do all of this together?
I'll be honest, this is the thing that I think I wish sometimes I had more focus and
Mm.
or like niched down a bit more. But at the same time, like all these things, there's a bit of they all kind of support each other in different ways.
Right.
So it's and I work with some great people. I work with Eric. I have Logan Hendrickson who helps me on the Jetpack, and then Aubrey Chapnick who helps me with PMM files. So I have like help
Mhm.
too. Some great people that I work with.
It's awesome. Yeah, and I think you touched upon this really well. And when I think about it, everything that you are doing, all the different projects kind of complement each other really well. The
Mm-hmm.
Jetpack is going to be great with PMM files from an inspiration perspective. And when it comes to day to day, the Jetpack helps you kind of set up your go to market launch more effectively. So it's addressing different needs of a PMM, and I think that's really well thought out.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, thanks. Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. That's the
yeah,
hope, at least.
totally. The state of the solo PMM report that you mentioned, the
Mm-hmm.
200 folks who responded, is it primarily Canada and US, or are you looking at Europe as well?
So it's interesting. We didn't actually. That's one of the things we need to improve on for next year is asking that where are you
Okay.
based? Um, the I think my like response to that question is that I find in startups so many people are hired remotely that
Hmm.
it is interesting today where in B2B SaaS startups like 0 to 200 employees, most product marketers are remote.
Yeah.
So it is kind of an interesting thing of like, is it more about where your company is based? Is it more about where you're based? But but I need to ask that question in the next one.
Mhm.
But I would suspect it's mostly like, actually, no, that's not true. Like I think a large portion of it's going to be North American,
Mhm.
but I think you're getting people from all over.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to get my hands on the report once it comes out. So, a couple of weeks, I'll keep an eye out on that.
Couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Couple of
Awesome.
weeks.
Jason, I'd like to move on to the next section that I like to call the tool talk. And I'd love to
Hmm.
hear from you, what are the kind of tools or softwares that you use in your day to day that you personally see most value in? I know we saw the Google Sheets templates that you walked us through. We've spoken about Navatic as well. But
Yep.
from your perspective, any other tools that you find most value in?
Yeah. Okay. So outside of those two, I would say my big ones are, well, Notion,
Hmm.
right? Big Notion user. That was one of the things we asked in the survey too. A lot of
Yeah,
Notion users out there. Canva, any
love
graphics
Canva.
I do. I
Yeah. Do
I
you create
you
your
know,
own graphics?
every graphic you see I've created for the most part.
Wow.
So yeah, I do that in Canva.
Right.
So Canva makes it really easy. And that was
Right.
also another tool a lot of product marketer founding PMMs are using.
Right.
Um, and I understand why, because it's great. And then the other one, and this one's more about like more relevant to like my creator business, is it's called Super, and it basically takes your Notion pages and can turn them into a website, which is really neat.
Nice.
It's super easy to use, and all my websites are built on Notion, which is
Oh,
cool.
and so that means all domain hosting, everything, creating a web page, all of that is taken care
They do domain hosting. I don't do. I just host my domain names on GoDaddy, but the like
of. Oh,
builder, basically, you just here's my Notion page, and then they turn it into a nice looking web page, and then you can customize it with like HTML and like design their like
oh, that's cool.
design customization and stuff. But it looks like a real website, but it's just a Notion page.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
I looked at a website. It didn't look like a Notion page to
yeah,
me. So
it doesn't. Yeah, yeah, that's it's great. Yeah, it's it's awesome for anyone looking to like get a website going and they use Notion. It's like the way to go.
I love it. I'm going to check it out for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, Jason, I'd like to move on to the final thoughts. From your perspective, obviously, you've been doing this for a while, started off on the corporate side, started venturing it out. You have obviously since seen a lot, been through a lot. In your perspective, what excites you the most about product marketing or even solo PMMs in specific? And what do you think the future holds for our function?
Yeah, I think it's such a so in terms of what I think the future holds, I think like I said earlier, you're gonna see we're just in this really cool place where because of AI and because of all these great tools out there, like people can build products really quickly and easily
Yeah,
and start companies. And I think that you are seeing more, you're gonna see more and more companies start and they're going to be like small, scrappy teams, a lot of bootstrapped companies, and you're going to see they need product marketing talent. They need a product marketer, but it's not going to be someone that's going to build out this big team, at least for a while, and
right,
they're going to operate smaller for longer. And I think that you need like so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for this like founding PMN role for these entrepreneurial product marketing people to get in and kind of have this really cool role in a startup. And I say it's cool because I think it's such a strategic role. Positioning, right? Your positioning, messaging, how you describe and show off your product. Those
right.
things are so big and important. And I think that it's just a really big linchpin role in a company. And so I'm just super excited about that. And I think that it's a good time to be a founding PMM. So I think that if you want that kind of role, like even we're seeing from this survey, it's like you got to be okay with doing execution and
Mm,
strategy. You need
mm,
to be okay with like operating on your own for a while, right?
right.
And being solo. You need to be okay with not a lot of budget. Like
Mm,
there's all these things that kind of come with it. But I
sure.
really like that idea of just like constraints,
Right.
create creativity and all that. So
It also gives you the flexibility. Smaller teams, you can move things around quicker. You can change your own processes, your own templates. You can kind of make it your own. Um,
yes.
so there's upsides as well, like significant
Yeah.
upsides.
I've seen it on both sides. I've seen people who
Yeah,
are in startups and there are lots of fun, great things about it, and there's things that are stressful. I've seen
correct.
people at big companies and there's all kinds of things that come with that too. And
Correct.
grass is always greener on either side, but I prefer startups and the founding PMM role. And I think you can make a career out of it. Like you
Mhm.
don't need to graduate to someday be in a big company or to someday have this massive team. I don't think
Right.
you need that doesn't need to be how your career progresses. I think
Mhm.
you can really like the startup world and be someone who operates
Right.
in a small team for your whole career.
And go 0 to 1 in multiple places then.
Yeah. Yeah. or
Awesome.
just go 0 to 1 in one place and then stay at
Yeah,
that place and be their product marketer and just build a successful business.
that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, how can people reach out to you if they'd like to learn more or if they'd like to engage with any of your resources?
Yeah. So my website's productivepmm.com. Go there, subscribe to PMM Files. That's the best way to like stay in touch with what's
I'll
going on
I'll
in my
I'll put
business.
over in the video as well. I'll put
Yeah,
the link.
nice. And then yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I post all my stuff.
Awesome. And again, one big plugin again for the PMM Files newsletter. If you guys want to get some weekly inspiration on multiple product marketing examples, feel free to check it out. I've been subscribed for a while. I check out every edition. So yeah, feel free to look at that as well. Jason, this was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak
Thanks for
with
having
me.
me. This was fun. Yeah,
This is
yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
appreciate
I
it.
love
Thanks, Grog.